Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Iron Hearts podcast. This is episode 5.
Numero 5.
Yes, and today's episode is going to be about Natty versus enhanced, or as Arian would say, enhanced.
Oh.
Yes, that's what you were supposed to go.
Oh, sorry. I didn't pick up on that one.
That's
sorry.
Okay. Just teasing you about how you pronounce certain words.
Yes.
All right, well, let's, I guess, start with what is considered natural versus enhanced, Arian.
You're just mocking the way I say enhanced now.
I'll stop, I promise.
No, so, I don't know. A lot of individuals, or most individuals, would consider natural no hormonal or PED intervention of any kind whatsoever, right?
Correct. Yes.
So, Natty, fully natural. The way God made you, I guess, would be the best way to describe it.
You're only taking, over-the-counter, vitamins, supplements, things
over-the-counter
right?
supplements, creatine,
protein,
multivitamins.
Yes.
That type of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And enhanced?
Enhanced, I would break down into 2 categories.
Mm-hmm.
There is what I would call enhanced in the sense of bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, or TRT, which I do not categorize the same as what you would call competitive bodybuilding PED use / abuse.
Right.
You know, there's almost like multiple subcategories you could break down, and I think enhanced into.
Yeah, but I think those are the two kind of the two big ones, right?
The 2 big ones, yeah, for sure. And I guess we can kind of define each of those as, you know, enhanced from a HRT standpoint would be essentially introducing bioidentical hormones to put yourself at the place that you would be were you a young natural athlete who was healthy and didn't have any hormonal dysregulation, whereas the enhanced PED or performance enhancing drug side of things is pushing your hormonal limits, a little bit. So pushing yourself into super physiological ranges with various PEDs, whether that be testosterone, fat burners, peptides. It's more of a polypharmacy approach versus correcting your levels to bring yourself back to what you would have been naturally in the past.
Yep. Yeah, and I guess, I can speak to this directly with my journey because I would say I've been a natural athlete for longer than I have been a non-natural athlete, right?
Yeah, as a competitive bodybuilder, that's a good thing to clarify there.
Right.
Most of your career has been as a natural bodybuilder.
Correct. It's literally been the past 2 years that haven't been. So I competed as a natural bodybuilder, for over 10 years with various natural organizations. And for those who don't know, I guess, who are listening to this, who aren't in the world of, bodybuilding, competitive bodybuilding, if you compete in a natural federation, you are required to first undergo a polygraph, so a lie detector test, at time of registration for that competition, or the day of, actually, or the day before, actually.
Yep.
Which is nerve-wracking. So if you are someone who is just naturally anxious and a nervous person, then that's already going to be a stressful situation for you, even if you are Natty.
And it's important to note that contrary to what a lot of these organizations will tell you, you can get false positives and false negatives from a polygraph test. And if they're telling you anything different, they just don't understand human physiology and psychology. So let's just get that out of the way right away.
Yeah.
You can fail a polygraph and not be lying.
Yep.
You can also pass a polygraph and be lying through your teeth. So let's just get that out of the way.
100%. And so just on that, I had a client in I'll say it was a WMBF show, who went through the polygraph test. She wasn't lying. She was just has anxiety anyway. So, showing up that she was lying, which she wasn't. And then she was not permitted to compete in that competition, which is just like, and I just felt for her because it was her first competition that she was doing. She'd been training for it for months and months and months.
And a little backstory, we're not just, or Danny's not just saying, oh, she was definitely natural. this particular girl, a woman, she was just clueless about PEDs. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing.
She didn't know what a PED was.
She didn't really even know what the world of PED. She was very much like a virgin to the world of bodybuilding and PEDs and all this other stuff. So the idea that she would fail a polygraph as if she was a PED user, we were scratching our heads. We were like, what?
Like, what?
That she.
So I can understand the need for having these polygraph tests, but also like there are false positives, and I think there needs to be some sort of like human conversation happening as well sometimes, to be like, come on guys, like, and she's doing bikini masters, like, anyway, so you can fail those.
There's what motivation would she have to cheat for
that
masters bikini for her first show? It just doesn't make any sense.
But I was that bothered me, because I'd been competing in that organization for years and years and years, and for them to think I would enter an athlete in one of their shows who had been, not a natural athlete, kind of pissed me off, to be honest, because I'm like, you know me, like I wouldn't have done that. Anyway.
Yeah, they weren't just calling the athletes' integrity into question; they were almost questioning Danny's integrity into question, which I can vouch for it. Like, Danni is not someone who would have allowed someone to pretend that they were natural when they were not. That would have been an affront to your values to do that.
That would go against my integrity. But anyway, so just going back. So that's what kind of, you do the polygraph test, and then if you place first or second in that competition, then you are subject to doing a urine test as well, and then that's sent away for sampling to make sure. So, which,
by the way, can also be duped, faked, bypassed. If the water testing can be duped, which is the World Anti-Doping Association, which is like pretty much the biggest body to prevent people using drugs in organized sports. If that can be duped, then I'm sorry, but a piss test after a natural bodybuilding show can absolutely be duped. I'm interjecting here because I don't want people to get this idea in their head that just because you do these tests that people don't slip through the cracks, because they absolutely do.
Oh, I'm sure they do. I didn't though. But so I competed as a natural athlete, like I said, from 2015, 2016, right up until 2023. I think was 2023 was the first year I started TRT, so which is testosterone replacement therapy. Making that decision to start TRT, I knew would automatically exclude me from competing as a natural athlete. But it was a decision that I had to make, right? I was 40 years old. My testosterone I'd been doing blood tests for a long time. My testosterone had been consistently under 15, 16 for years and years and years.
And trending downwards with each competitive season.
Yeah. And maybe explain a little bit why that happens in terms of that.
Well, depending on the individual, you're going to see your natural hormonal axis start to downregulate as you age, regardless of whether you're a competitor or not. But if you're a competitor, and particularly for females, just in my experience anecdotally, females tend to be less hormonally resilient than guys. Guys can bounce back from being low body fat for several reasons. I won't go into all the physiological reasons why men tend to be more hormonally resilient, but if you think about it logically, if women are meant to carry children, they're the gateway to life. There's all of these other factors going on that women are hormonally, I think, just much more complex than men.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna open that can of worms, but no. I wasn't saying anything. I wasn't saying anything about Danny's psychological state of mind there, or the psychological state of mind of any female for that matter. But no, women tend to be less hormonally resilient than men, and I do see pretty rapidly, regardless of age, that when a female competes successively, her sex hormones tend to never really get back to where they were before she competed. In some cases, they do.
Yeah.
I would say in more than half, I can't put a specific number on it, but in more than half of the natural female athletes I've coached, I never see their testosterone levels fully return back to the top of the reference range after they've done one or two competitive seasons.
Yeah.
It's just very hard on the body to come back from that hormonally.
Yeah. So, my decision to start testosterone replacement therapy, it wasn't an overnight decision. I mean, I had been, natural, for years, you know, I had tried to get my testosterone up naturally. It didn't happen. So after years and having a conversation, you know, about like, well, longevity really and how I was feeling and everything else, you know, doing a replacement, you know, testosterone, you know, therapy made sense for me, right? So that was...
It wasn't a competitive bodybuilding based decision at all. It was 100%. I mean, the clinical implications of long-term hypogonadism in both men and women is well documented. So the cardiovascular risks alone were enough of a reason for Danni to consider potentially starting TRT.
Yeah.
Forget about competing. Continue. I just wanted to preface that as well.
So that was the decision. Again, it was purely like longevity, health wise. Like, you know, I can't continue to be operating at low T and feeling, you know, lethargic. I mean, there's all these things that we've spoken about before. It's like low, you know, energy, low libido, like it also affects your cognitive function as well. That's another big one that people don't talk about. So, you know, there was various reasons for starting testosterone replacement therapy. But yes, I knew that would then put me out of the, you know, the natty world. And yeah, and I came, you know, I was honest about starting when I started TRT and was asked to remove the...
Well, no, let's rewind. So around the time that Danni decided to announce that she has started TRT, because she wanted to raise awareness, because why not? There's a lot of, or at least it's getting less, I've noticed, but there's a lot of stigma, particularly for females, around taking TRT. There's this idea, and we'll kind of get into why in the natural competitive world there's this stigma around any form of hormonal support. I think it comes from just a lack of understanding.
100%.
But the idea is anything, or at least the perspective for a lot of people is that anything hormonal in nature is just an anabolic steroid.
Yes.
And that is not the case. So we just wanted to kind of talk about how Danni had been experiencing these side effects, how she was concerned about her longevity, a lot of the things that you just mentioned, and she was just like very transparent about it. Like, I did this for my health.
Yeah.
I can't compete naturally. And, you know, you very, I guess, like politely just said, you know, you were asked to take it out of your bio. Like, be specific. Like, what happened? Like, literally the day that you posted the reel announcing that you were taking TRT. We won't say which organization did it, but one of the owners of one of the organizations just sent you a DM
saying,
within like an hour of you posting it, saying, what was it?
I don't know what it was. It just like remove our federation name from your bio.
From your bio. Like, because she had pro status with this particular organization.
It's like, because you're not natural. And I was like, okay, but like it was just the way that he asked me to do it, and just the rudeness, and it was kind of like I was being treated as if I was, I don't know, like God knows what, like shooting up, you know, copious amounts of steroids. I'm like, I literally just started testosterone replacement therapy. Like, it's not as if, and I was natural when I achieved my pro status twice, so it's kind of like, okay, I could understand because they do test their pros periodically as well. Like, if you're on anything
in season, season, like not even at the shows, they just like
they
hit you up. They're like, show up to this testing,
right? Which they should,
which is good.
I agree with that because
it's harder. I
totally understand.
It's harder to dupe tests if they're testing you randomly, for sure.
Correct. You know? And the thing with testosterone too is that, yes, it's a bioidentical hormone, but you know, you can go, you know, if you're dosing like really high amounts, you know, it can obviously, it's a bit different to doing a replacement dose, right? So
yeah, super physiological is very different to replacement dosages. And the other thing to remember is that if you're on TRT, you're not going to experience the same downregulation of testosterone you would while dieting if you're injecting it exogenously or introducing it from outside the body. A natural athlete might see their natural testosterone start to taper down as they start to get leaner because of the deleterious effects of prep. You wouldn't experience that if you're on TRT. Exactly. So that's another advantage you would get from it. Yeah,
exactly. So, but anyway, I think it was just it was how I was asked to do it. It was very rude. It was very like abrupt and blunt. And I'm like, I have been a a competitor, a supporter, an advocate for this for years. Competed in many shows, brought clients to the shows,
We
there.
We both put clients into the WNBF over, the period that...
Well, there you go. You just said that. You were like, we're not going to say...
It was the WNBF. I'm sorry. I don't give a shit. I'm just going to be honest. If they hear this, they hear this. I mean, at the end of the day, I hope it gives them pause, because
I just wish
you would have been a
a
continuing really good representative for the organization if they had just been a little bit more, I don't know, just
nicer about it. I mean, I'm still a person. You know what I mean? It wasn't an easy decision. Like, it's not as if I was like, oh, I'm going to do that, because again, like I loved saying that I was a natty, it was, and then I couldn't say that anymore, right? Because I started testosterone. But it's not as if I, threw the kitchen sink at myself and was like, right, I'm doing Anabar, I'm doing all these other stuff. I literally was doing testosterone replacement therapy. So I honestly was a little bit like, I don't know, I just didn't like the way he spoke to me and asked me to do that without even trying to understand what my reasonings were. And maybe he doesn't care. Okay, fine, I guess. It's like, I don't give a shit, you're not natty anymore. But yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, I would have still been a supporter of that federation and had entered my clients into their shows and stuff, but I won't now because of the way I was treated. I was literally like shunned.
Without just going into this too much and just constantly harping on about this situation, the way it was handled and also the reasoning behind why it was handled this way flies in the face of this idea that, a lot of natural organizations talk about how they're athlete-centered and, that being natural is the healthier way. It's like better for the athlete, etc. But you were doing this
for my health,
to put yourself in a healthier so anyway.
So I mean, look, I think I always tell my clients, especially like young people, like, always do the natty route first, right? I mean, I didn't start TRT till I was 40 years old.
For
sure. You can do it through good training, nutrition, all that stuff, right? And I think you should try and do it naturally first, and that goes for guys as well, not just females.
Yeah, 100%. If you're in a position to where you can compete naturally first and get that experience, because it's just a different experience competing natural to competing. You'll attest to that, right? Competing natural versus enhanced. There's slight differences in the way.
Slight differences, but honestly, not really. I mean, you still have to diet. You still have to train hard. Do you feel more I have more energy, I'm sleeping better, things like that. But I don't think it takes away from the work that has to go into a competition prep, regardless whether you're a natty or not natty. And it's funny because when I was a natty, before I had any idea because I had zero idea about PEDs, hormones, any of this stuff. Like, I was completely oblivious. And the way I used to and I'll just say it, I thought that as a natty competitor, I was better than non-natties because I was putting in extra work, or it was harder for me or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I've competed in both, and I'm
that.
I'm such an idiot. I didn't understand what I was talking about at all. It's exactly the same.
Well,
not exactly the same, but it's
you're not an idiot.
It's similar.
You're not an idiot. I think it's understandable if you're someone who isn't taking PEDs or anabolics to naturally assume that someone who is taking PEDs or anabolics doesn't have to work as hard, because you would be correct in assuming that, I think, on some level. But what a lot of people don't take into account is my personal opinion is drugs, natural, however you do it, the deciding factor as to how well you do, other than, maybe the way that you're judged, is going to be your genetic makeup, which is not something that you can change. You can't pick your parents, unfortunately. So there are some individuals, and I was talking to Danni about this the other day, there are some individuals who they haven't touched a PED and they look better than guys and girls who've been blasting themselves to the gills for years because they just won the genetic lottery. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that someone who is also natural and busted their ass to look or to compete with that individual doesn't look anywhere near as good as them, that there's somehow less, that they deserve less respect because they just don't have the genetics to build muscle or retain muscle to the ability that they do? So it's kind of a silly comparison to make, I think sometimes.
Yeah, it is. But I just I used to always think as a natty, I didn't want to compete in non-natural competitions because I always thought I'd be at a disadvantage because all the girls were doing all these and again, I had no idea what even PEDs were. I literally would just be like, they're doing PEDs, like literally not understanding what I wouldn't be able to name one except for I think Anavar I knew of. But I always thought that they would be at an advantage and that it wouldn't be fair to me to compete in those competitions, which is just, I mean, honestly, I've been to some natural shows where, they look more conditioned and leaner than the girls and non-natural shows.
Oh, yeah, so, natties know how to get shredded.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Look at my conditioning before. It's just,
because they don't have the advantage of being able to retain the type of muscle that someone who's on anabolics does. So they have to bring condition to show their structure appropriately. Yeah. But there's also plenty of shows that are untested that we've gone to where the competition isn't super fierce. Right. And that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of girls who are now, especially in the female divisions, like a lot of the girls are not taking any drugs at all. They're just competing.
It's just a non-tested federation. Yeah.
They just want to compete with the NPC because it's bigger and there's more prestige and it's more popular and there's more shows. There's more eyes on there's more shows.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger organization.
Yeah, and especially in the bikini division, like there really isn't, there's not a big difference between going to a natural show in terms of talent versus a non-natural show. And again, I think sometimes I've seen more talent in the natties versus in some of these local like NPC shows. So.
Yeah, the biggest delineation or the biggest divide comes at the pro natural level versus the pro untested level. That's 100%. Where you see
that's where you see
difference.
A big disparity.
Yeah, and that's a combination of obviously the drug use, but also just insane genetics on top of drug use as well, where, that's why, and there's still people walking around thinking that a lot of these athletes are like fully natural because they just don't know that drugs are just it's not just part of bodybuilding. People just want to make that clear. Right. It's part of organized sports as well. If you think that some of your top, ex-athlete in X sport like hasn't been exposed to drugs or use, you're deluding yourself. It's in every major sport out there. It's just some people haven't been caught yet.
Yeah. So. And I think today as well, it's just so it's, I think the natty card is becoming less and less of a thing because so many people are going on are doing. Yeah, HRT is like in my Instagram feed, like clinics are being advertised all the time. And I think, people are wanting to, this kind of instant gratification, like get big quick, like without having to do the necessary work. And I mean, I think as well with that and with it being everywhere that there's, people don't always think about the risks involved. And I mean, sometimes we hear about certain protocols that not our clients, but, either people that we know are on and we just look at each other like, what are you doing? Like, it's just... coaches not thinking about the long-term, health risks of putting their clients on such high dosages of stuff that's just not even, doesn't even make sense, right?
And oftentimes it comes from a lack of understanding. They're typically copying and pasting protocols that they got from their coaches, or they haven't been in a position to... or they haven't been in a position where they've messed the client up yet. Mm-hmm. So they're like, well, nothing's gone wrong yet. So, what have I got to lose? Yeah. And then one day it's going to blow up in their faces. Yeah. I mean, with my female athletes, I've had conversations with many of them. I'm like, I wouldn't provide you or give you a protocol that I wouldn't be willing to give like a family member in terms of the risk assessment. Right. The level of risk I'm willing to tolerate for you is the same as someone who I like care about, and that's how I walk my ethical line of what I'm willing to give them. And then if they decide beyond that, like, no, actually I want to assume the risk, I'm like, okay, well, either we need to be clear about this, that this is not something I'm advising and you're choosing to ignore my advice because you want it more than the reward is greater than the risk for you. Right. Or maybe you need to go with someone who's willing to push more dangerous protocols because I don't want to be responsible for you sounding like a man in 6 months' time, Yeah,
and then I guess not just on the females, but how do you mitigate, with your clients, help mitigate the risks, or, if they do decide to jump on the PED train?
Well, everyone's going to, immediately assume that it's like, just get your blood work, just consistently get your blood work. It's like, that is not enough for a lot of people, especially if they're assuming a high level of risk, which, sorry to say, but if you're if you're trying to turn pro now, I would argue that it's probably more competitive than it's ever been, right? At this point, like the national level.
Shows are huge.
So if you're trying to turn pro, you're going to probably, unless you're someone who's extremely genetically gifted, you're going to have to be willing to accept a certain level of risk in terms of PED exposure. So if that's the case, just getting blood work once a year or every 6 months is not enough, because blood work is just a snapshot in time. And one of the most, like, it's the dumbest thing, and it just, like, I roll my eyes every time I see it. It's like guys who you can tell just by looking at them that they're not healthy. They look super inflamed, their skin is, you can just tell they're super aged, and they're like, 4 weeks into my cruise, gonna get blood. Cruise is basically like a term for when you're at a period of low exposure. Most of these guys' cruises are still insanely high. They're like basically an intermediate like cycle. It's like, 2 weeks into my cruise, feeling really healthy, like can't wait to get blood work and hop back on in 4 weeks. It's like, you're an idiot, dude. Like there's nothing about the perception of feeling healthy that tells you whether you're starting to experience left ventricular hypertrophy, your coronary arteries are blocked with, plaque. You don't know any of these things because most of these guys have never had a coronary artery calcium score or an intermediate thickness scan on their carotid artery, any of these other things. So blood work is helpful as an indication of, what are my risk factors for these greater disease pathologies? So, I'm not going to go over all of the blood work, but most people just get, cholesterol, comprehensive metabolic panel, C-reactive protein, but they wait until they've been off PEDs for 8 weeks to get them. It's like, okay, so you're at a low dose and you're now getting a blood test just to make yourself feel better about the fact that
That's a hop on.
that you're like, oh yeah, no, my numbers are fine. It's like, yeah, because you waited for, the clearance time of the drug to pass and for your numbers to come back to normal, and then you got blood test. It's like, no, take your bloods at the absolute peak of your cycle dose, because then you know how skewed you are when you're at your highest risk, Don't.
So timing is important.
Yeah, don't gaslight yourself into thinking that because you spent 8 to 12 weeks off and your blood work looked fine in that snapshot in time that you're somehow healthy, or because you feel healthy. That is the one that kills me. Is like this 340-pound dude, who's been on like 2 grams of gear for the whole year, super inflamed. Like, oh yeah, feel healthy 2 weeks on a cruise. Yeah. It's like, dude, the drugs haven't even left your system yet. So you're an idiot. Anyway, but I get like fiery about it because they're kind of pushing this idea that you can assume this level of risk and just put, no effort into actually checking your...
Yeah, and it's young people, young guys that watch that, you know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of young kids jumping on PEDs a lot earlier these days, and it's like...
because they work.
Just do the work first.
Because they work. They do work. The more gear, like, sorry to say, whether you're a genetic elite or not, like, the more gear you take, the more muscle you're going to build. That's just the way it goes. But that doesn't mean that you should. That doesn't mean that you should just...
That's what I'm saying. You should still...
take, and especially for a lot of people, you're not doing any of the things to actually... I guess, accelerate the effectiveness of those PEDs. Like, you're not sleeping well. Your training program sucks. You train like a pussy when you are in the gym. Yeah. You do like, 12 like lackluster sets and then take a fucking selfie and walk out the door, saying you've done a workout when you haven't. Like, you can tell I'm getting fired up about this because it's just like, why are you even doing PEDs in the first place? But don't just get blood work. Get your cardiovascular scans. See if you have signs of left ventricular hypertrophy, calcium buildup. Get an echocardiogram on your heart to see, if there's any dysfunction in the way that your heart is beating. These types of things, they're not super cheap, but they're not super expensive. We're talking like a couple $100. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can find a doctor who's willing to write a requisition for you to get it done. Yeah. These are the types of things that you also don't need to get annually. You can get them every 2 to 3 years, and they will at least tell you if you get it done at the beginning of your journey and then 3 years later, at least you can compare the two to see if things are getting worse. And if they're not getting worse, hooray for you. You're one of those genetically, lucky people who doesn't have a predisposition to cardiovascular disease, but you don't know unless you get it checked. And I think that's why a lot of people just don't check
do it,
because they don't want to know.
Ignorance
they don't
is bliss.
They want to be like, oh, well, it's fine. Nothing's shown up yet. And then at 42 years old, they have an MI or a heart attack, and they're like, oh, why did this happen to me? It's like, because you didn't mitigate your blood pressure or any of these other things.
Right.
So preventative scans first. Check your blood pressure. If you're on PEDs, check your blood pressure every day. Like, I take my blood pressure sometimes twice a day because I just want to know where it's
wait for him
sitting.
to finish. I'm like lying in the bed already.
I take it in the morning and in the evening because I just want to. But I'm extra, but that's what I like to do. So check your blood pressure. If you have blood pressure issues, get a prescription for ancillaries that are going to bring it down, so that if you are not willing to, give up your dream of being an enhanced bodybuilder, you're mitigating the risk. So whether it's blood pressure issues, cholesterol issues, general systemic inflammation, if your C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation in the body, is off the charts, which for a lot of guys it is when they're on PEDs, you've got to find ways to reduce inflammation in the body. And a lot of that is supplementation, which will be, again, another conversation. But at the very least, get a snapshot of what's happening, not just from your blood work, but from your organ health and, the other, I guess, like danger points. Because if you just wait, 4 or 5 years or 10 years, like at that point, the damage is already done. And, it's very hard to reverse it. Once you get beyond a certain age, it's very hard to reverse that damage.
Yeah. And I think for females, and this is something that comes up a lot. If you are going through an HRT clinic and they put you on testosterone, please, tell your coach, first of all, if you have one. Second of all, don't just take their word for it. I think we spoke about this a little bit in episode 2, I think it was. But
do your own research.
Always, an injectable is always going to be better because you can actually control what you're dosing. Starting dose, again, 4 milligrams a week is a good starting dose, split up in 2 and 2. And then do your own blood work and check it after like 2 or 3 months at the most, because any HRT clinic that tells you that, most of their girls feel the best at, around 100
or 150
or 100 is an idiot.
The other thing is they're financially incentivized to sell you more expensive forms of testosterone. Well, most places will try and sell the pellets because it's the most expensive way,
creams.
because you have to get a surgery to have it implanted, and then
terrible.
It takes a while for you to have surgery to get it out, and it doesn't give you like a steady stream of testosterone. It's like a really big bolus that kind of reduces over time. It's just not the way to go. Creams are terrible because there's absorption issues, and there's concerns about contamination if you have it on your hands or on your skin, and then one of your kids or your spouse touches that can absorb through their hand. Just do injectable. A lot of people are afraid of needles, but
it's really not that bad.
Get over it. If you want to do TRT, get over that.
But yeah, so as I was saying, for the females, just make sure you check yours as well. You do not want to be pushing up around 100 consistently. It's too high. I think ideally anywhere between, in terms of being optimal, I think anywhere between 55 to 80 is fine. I think anything higher than that would be a little bit.
Yeah, 80 is, concerning. I think, pushing up into what I would call the upper maximum.
Yeah,
I think.
I checked mine. My last time I was at 64. My last check.
Yeah.
And I'm doing somewhere between 4 to 5 milligrams a week, Mondays and Thursdays. But and I check it. Like I said, I check it every 3 months just to make sure that everything's good.
And another important thing is, if you want an actual accurate reading of what your testosterone is. Go get your blood test 24 hours after injection. Don't inject and then test 3 days later, because at that point, the medication has already dissipated below what the peak concentration would be anyway. So if you're injecting on a Monday at 7 a.m., go get your test around the same time the following day, because that's going to be the peak of the drug, and then it starts to taper off, especially if you're using an ester like cypionate, which dissipates over 3.5 days. It depends on the type of testosterone you're using, but most individuals are using enanthate or cypionate, which peaks highest after a day. So if you're unsure about what cypionate you're using, you can message us and we'll be happy to help, because the last thing we want is someone who's getting, sold a bridge in Brooklyn, when they just need to, ask the right questions, and it'll keep you from running into some of the nightmarish stuff that people have, coming down the pipe, and they don't even realize it. Yep.
Just making sure that you're doing that regularly, and injection's always going to be safer than doing the pellets or doing the creams. So, and the other thing I think is just, do you even need it, right? Like I said, I think it was years and years before I was 40 when I started, and I think it's, not if you're in your 20s, you're good. Like you don't need to be starting any kind of HR, or especially the females. I just think like it's just
it depends. Some people have
naturally low
T, or they have issues, whether it's because they've had health issues in the past, or medications, or birth control is a big one, man.
Yes.
Birth control just crushes your androgens in many cases. And I know a lot of girls who just had to start TRT because after coming off of their birth control, while on birth control, their testosterone was like 2, came off it and it was like 5 after 6 months. So they just have to get themselves back to what is considered a normal range, you know?
Yeah.
So
of course, it's different from person to person. But I'm just saying, like, I think just making sure you're an actual candidate for it first.
Yeah, I think what you're driving at is if like, I'm tired and I feel like I can't build muscle. I can't build muscle. I can't lose body fat. Like, I think I have low T. It's like, okay,
or there's something going on with my hormone. It's always like, it must be my hormones.
Yeah, it must be my thyroid or my high cortisol.
Your shitty programming, your lack of consistency.
Yeah, it's the fact that you sleep 4 hours a night, you drink alcohol 4 nights a week, you eat garbage food, you have a unhealthy relationship with yourself or maybe with your partner or your family. Like, these are all things that are going to contribute to hormone dysregulation. Correct those things first before just thinking you need a prescription. Okay.
Yeah, and like Arian said, I mean, if you ever have any questions or anything, feel free to to DM us. I mean, I'd probably defer to Arian more so because he's the kind of nerd when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I know a little bit, but
yeah,
through my own research and my own experiences, of course, like I said, of being a Natty competitor and now not being Natty.
I think your input's important though, because you understand as a woman what it feels like to go from having low T to normal T. In your 40s. That's something that I don't know what that feels like. Yeah, so your input is important, I think.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think. Did you have anything else that you wanted to?
No, I think we already kind of addressed a few of the big ones. Just again, if you're curious about this kind of stuff, I mean, I can talk about it a lot, but I think it's very situation to situation dependent whether it makes sense to delve into some of the deeper stuff. But if there's other areas of HRT or just Natty versus enhanced stuff that you want us to expand on, let us know. I don't know if did you go over like the full story? Did we address the full story of we did, didn't we? Pretty much at this point. You're like, now I want to leave it alone.
I mean, I don't know. It's we did. I don't think there's anything.
We're also not discouraging anyone to compete with that, organization or anything.
No, I think you should compete naturally as long as you can. 100%.
There's a lot of good natural organizations, but But
I also don't think that natural competitors should be especially in bikini. Let me just say that should be afraid to do non-tested shows, because I was thinking that they're going to be so much harder, and they're not. They're exactly the same.
Yeah, 100%. Honestly, at the amateur level, just compete at the show that is probably closest to you, that's going to create the least amount of stress on show day.
Yes.
To where you'll actually have a good time, especially if you're a first-time competitor, because you may never compete again. So just have fun with it and make it convenient. And then if you're like, damn, I really like this, then you can, really dive into it full bore and decide which organization you're going to go the distance with.
Yeah.
There's obviously the prestige is in the NPC and the IFBB. They're the biggest, but it's also the most competitive by far. Yeah, it
ain't easy when you get
crazy the level of competition now. So, but that's exciting at the same time. So
yeah, it is.
That's why we like that, organization, because it's nothing's easy. And nothing that you get easy is like fun to to earn anyway. So yeah.
Correct, Mundo. All right. Well, on that note, thank you guys for tuning in. Let us know in the comments if there's any other areas within this, like Arian said, that you guys would like us to talk about more, and
or if there's another topic that's
or just anything really.
Yeah, that you want us to chat about. We're open to suggestions. So yeah. All right. See ya. Okay. See you. Bye. See you next time, guys.